So we have a lot of problems in the city right now, as we just had a disaster, which destroyed a good chunk of our city. And the worst part is, we have no demand for anything but industrial. So we have to fix this city and bring it back to life somehow. The good news is we do have quite a bit of money. However, in order to generate more residential and commercial demand, we first have to improve the land value and quality of life of the existing residents of the city and make new developments more desirable. But in order to do that first, we do have to provide some new jobs, which means we will have to fulfill some of this industrial demand. If you're new here, my name's Diana, and welcome to Sandy Beach, a vanilla build for beginners to the game. Now we will start in this area that we created in the last episode to add in a little bit of industry. But we won't go there, but what we can do is throw in some offices, because we did have some educated workers. And this area by the highway here is a great place for industry. It is a complementary use. They'll have good access to 2 interchanges here, and they don't mind the noise from the cars on the highway. At this size of a city, in order for zones to really grow, we do have to improve the services. So we need to make sure that we have adequate police and fire coverage. And now that we've fulfilled that industrial demand, we're down to nothing. What we can do is make things here a little nicer and get rid of some of this dead stuff over here and start creating little pockets of city services that'll improve land values. We are going to delete all of these abandoned buildings and even some of the ones that aren't abandoned. Too bad. So a quick and easy way to make any place happier and higher land value is just to create some small parks here and there. And we'll just quickly detail this up with a few trees, and it'll give these neighborhoods a little bit of a public square that'll actually help to increase the land value of the area, making it more desirable for everyone who lives here. I do like to keep these as symmetrical as possible, but I'm not doing the best job because I'm so used to using mods. But the wild hedges are beautiful for lining any path, and putting a bunch of them really close together like this creates a nice little buffer zone. So we have a lot more demand for industrial here, and we're starting to get some of our commercial zone demand back, but I'm not going to worry about that quite yet, because I want to improve the services in the areas that already exist. I mean, a meteor hasn't hit, but we did have a disaster, so there's our disaster memorial. And I know, those buildings aren't abandoned, but they can handle some eminent domain while we build this beautiful area. So the game doesn't like that very much. For some reason we can't connect it up. That's okay. We'll just pretend like that connection is there. One thing the vanilla game gave us recently was parking lots. So I'm putting some in here. And then we're going to bring back some commercial. Another way to improve the land values is by bringing in good public transit. So one thing I want to do, if you look at our transit lines, we actually have an opportunity here that we have not been taking. So this tram line comes along here, and there's 2 more tram lines here, but we don't have any east-west tram lines in the city yet. So what I think we can do is these 2 one-way roads here can become a tram loop. We will sacrifice these beautiful trees, so we won't have the palm tree lined streets anymore. And what this effectively does is creates a full tram loop around the city, which pretty much enables people to get anywhere they need to via tram alone, and then take local buses to get into the neighborhoods. So let's go ahead and extend out this tram line. So there's 2 ways we can do this. We can either drag the line to add the stops and move the stop. I think the better and easier way, just because of how this game works, is to just start over with the entire line. Because we're seeing some inefficiencies. It's going over here, and it doesn't really need to because we already have a tram line here. I'm actually going to create a tram road here as well. And then what we can do is start the line here, come there. It has a good connection up with this bus line along with this tram line. We're going to do the same here in front of the park. That way the local buses can actually take people from the long distance tram stops around the city into these local neighborhoods. And we'll provide another stop here. And basically how I'm doing this is just creating stops every few blocks. And then when there are opportunities to connect up to another method, we keep that in mind. I can't put the bus and tram stop in the same place, but I'll keep it close, and then it can connect up to this other crosstown tram too. We've got one more opportunity there, and then we'll end it along that loop. The reason I don't actually stop it here is it's too close to this stop, and I think that they'll back up and cause some problems. So I like to keep them separate, but we'll mirror all of the stops where we can so that along this one-way couplet, they're relatively even with each other. I want to put a stop in front of the mall, but I've already put it here and it's closer to the bus stop, so I'm going to live with it like that. They can walk a couple extra blocks. And then this is a great spot in front of the park because we do have the end of the bus loop there and here. And this is actually an okay opportunity to put a stop because it's the end of the line anyway. It's not going to cause too many problems. And there we go. And I'll color this red again just like we did before. And boy, oh boy, it is raining hard in Sandy Beach today. So we still have no demand for residential. I do think that there is some benefit in just going through the different parts of the neighborhood and doing things that'll increase the happiness of the city itself. For example, let's look at our fire coverage and see where we can improve. Like this whole industrial area, no fire coverage whatsoever, but we'll keep it back here so we don't have to destroy any buildings. And same here, we could increase the fire coverage. We have one there, which is this game is a little wonky, but that's okay. And of course these suburbs here probably need a dedicated fire station because they're kind of hard to get to. And you know what? That building's ugly as hell. Gone. I know we have a relatively full fire coverage for the city. So this is an issue that we have right now is we actually have too many highly educated residents. And our well-educated and uneducated are super low. So we're very unbalanced right now. What that does mean is that we can actually support more office. Whereas I've been building a bunch of dirty industry. It's important to look at the educational balance of your population because it doesn't actually show you what the demand for office versus industry is. And what I'm seeing with a highly educated population is we probably do need more demand for office as opposed to industry. I did want to do something kind of nicer with this, but for now I'm going to keep the offices there. And keeping this in mind, what we can actually do is over here, in some of these areas, we can afford to just redevelop. It's probably irresponsible of me to just delete houses that are perfectly good when I've got all these destroyed ones, but I honestly don't care. I just want to delete a bunch of this. It'll save you on frame rate if you delete the trees underneath the buildings before you actually build there, which is something I've learned. And if you do decide to install mods, having those trees there is not a good idea. Let's just say that. So yeah, as you can see, the offices come in pretty quickly. So I think it's a good practice that we can just get rid of some of these. And what we'll do is we'll pause the game and we can pepper in some office in with the residential to create a nice little mixed use area. And that's what I'm going to do. I think this mixed zoning like this is going to also help us to decrease some of our traffic. Our traffic percentage is actually really good right now. If we look at it, 91%. So there's no problem with traffic, but it's always nice to have a walkable city. Mixed zoning like this is a lot of fun because it creates dynamic neighborhoods. And if you just separate everything out into different areas, it's not necessarily unrealistic. It's just very American suburbs. See, at this point, we have so much money and so little demand for anything that we can start to do some fun projects. And these fun projects will actually help with increasing the overall attractiveness of the city. And what I mean by fun projects is we can start adding in those unique buildings and such. Those ones that really define a city. I'm going to create something in here that sort of faces the waterfront, and we're actually going to do something with this area as opposed to just leaving it kind of bare, kind of blank, kind of ugly. Like there's nothing going on here. The city just stops. We want to make something special of this waterfront. I will not lie. I am very annoyed by these rocks. And this Sandy Beach is one of the first maps that was ever made in the game. So it's not the most playable map compared to some of the later expansions that came on. But that's okay. I picked this map because I like the challenge, and it is a base game map, so you don't need any DLCs to use it. You don't need any mods to use it. It's pretty much the essence of vanilla Cities Skylines in one map. And also I like that it's based on my home area of San Francisco, so it makes me happy. So now we have a relatively clear and clean pad to work with. We want to look at our terrain heights. They are terrible. Look at this. This is hideous. And this is what I mean about these base game maps. The terrain is just all over the place, that it doesn't matter. We can actually do some extreme terraforming, which is what I'm gonna do. So if I put the brush strength on all the way up, we are gonna flatten this area out quite a bit. So one thing we can't do is you can't build keys if there's no shoreline. However, we can play some games. So to light strength, I'm gonna lower this terrain. Using the right click button will actually bring it down. And this is some next level vanilla gameplay here. Because it requires a shoreline, that means it requires water. And because in the vanilla game, there's no way to actually get water, there's two ways to do this. So if you don't have any DLCs, you can just put one of these outlets. And what it's gonna do is it's gonna dump water into there, and that'll work. Your sewage will dump in there, it'll count as a shoreline, that's fine. But I don't wanna do that. I have the Natural Disasters DLC, and one of the good things that came with it is these freshwater outlets. I think if I put one here, we should get enough water. Put this on full speed and see what happens. There we go. So now we can actually build this key wall, which is what I wanted, because I want to create a retaining wall here. So let's delete the freshwater outlet now. Pause it. Now the one thing is the terrain is a little wild here. I'm going to turn off all the road guidelines and just follow this at a curve about there and do the same down here. And that looks a little better. We're still going to need to redraw a lot of this. And sorry, offices. This is so not realistic, but I really, really don't care because I want this to look nice. So I'll just use some of this vegetation along here. And it looks really nice. It's like kind of overgrown, but not. And this is a good way for kind of covering up ugly cliffs and weird tearing textures. Is just find something that looks like it would be part of the natural environment, whether that's a rock or some vegetation or grass. And these props go really nicely here. Now I'm going to upgrade these to my favorite California palms because it looks beautiful. And they won't fit there, but that's okay. So now I want to look at some of my unique buildings and decide what we're going to put here. I'm going to look at some of my content creator packs. I have every single content creator pack in the game. They're all excellent in their own way. But what I think we're going to do is actually play with the stuff that came in the Shopping Malls DLC. So these look beautiful, and I think they're gonna work well. The theme kind of close to this waterfront, the palm trees, like Ocean City Mall. They're super cute. This was a workshop asset for a very long time, and they brought it into the vanilla game. It's so good. I love Corn Kitchen here. And that's way too close together, so we're actually not gonna do that. But essentially what I want is for the mall to be flush with this. That's actually a better idea. So we're gonna turn off all of our guides and come in straight here. And then this is going to face this direction. And then we have service roads behind it so that the traffic can they won't actually use it, but I imagine seeing these little trucks here. And now I think we could fit the other mall. No, we're gonna create sort of a frontage road in front of it here. So what we're gonna do is actually make parking lots in the front here, just like a real mall. And that gives me an idea. And it's kind of a radical idea, but it's okay. And this is the kind of project that, because we're in vanilla, requires a lot of trial and error. And these are the kind of projects that you can really only do once you have a whole bunch of money saved up, and that's fine. There we go. And let's delete that. And that is a vanilla retaining wall, which I think looks better with the layers of height. And now we've got a little pedestrian mall area. The only silly thing is the parking. So how we're gonna fix that is the one with no parking, because I want the cars to use the parking lots. And there we go. So we have a full little mall here. It does need to be detailed up a little bit. These do act as unique buildings, so they're gonna draw tourists to the area, but I think it's gonna work. So let me go ahead and detail this. Because this is a commercial area, and the Shopping Malls DLC came with the district style, for this, if you have the Shopping Malls Content Creator Pack, you can actually create a district style, which we're going to do right here. And then when those commercial zones grow in, they're going to grow in a very particular style. And that's adorable because it also matches kind of with the style of these buildings. And then a couple more will grow over time. For now, I'm going to continue my detailing on this side. And so I want to do something with the waterfront here. And what I'm thinking we're going to do is actually buy, it's terrible investment. It doesn't make any sense, but we're going to do it anyway because we have unlocked some tiles, and I think I'll unlock that too. And those are the tiles that I have to work with. I've unlocked 6 of the 9 vanilla tiles. So I have to keep that in mind, that I'm thinking that these 3 will be the final 3. But if we expand to 25 tiles, then that won't matter. But I do like having this extra bit of coastline to work with, and then we can work on crossing the bay at some point soon too. So let's talk about what we're gonna do here. So I do want to build a harbor, but just the cruise ship harbor for now, because I think that'll be nice to bring in some people. This is what I mean about these base game maps. Like, that is so unrealistic. I hate this. So we're gonna do something to make this look a lot better. So you can buy soil if you run out, which I'm gonna be doing a lot of. Because I have $5 million, I can kind of do whatever the hell I want. And don't worry, this water will go away. I hate where this tram depot is, so we are going to relocate it. I do want to create a somewhat reasonable slope. So I'm right clicking here, and then I'm going to click, and this is with the create slope tool. So now I'm going to use the simple seawall and create a nice sort of area here. We might actually transition that into this because those steps look really nice, and we'll create this sort of walkable area here. And then I think right here is where I actually want the harbor to be. And the cool thing about these water buildings is they'll actually sit pretty sweetly on this quay wall. So what I actually want to do is we're going to take this tram road all the way down here to meet up with the ferry. Let's look at our terrain. And we'll create a little tramway, but I want to make this a walkable waterfront area. We're going to use the Plazas and Promenades DLC, and we're going to create a pedestrian area along the waterfront. This area will not be pedestrian because this is where we're going to put our service points. So in order to create a pedestrian area, you need a service point, which is actually going to enable you to have the garbage and cargo all picked up there instead of at the individual buildings. It's sort of a game mechanic thing more than anything. It's not very realistic. And we're gonna put more offices back here with it because we have a lot of demand. Nice little playground on the beach next to the cruise ship terminal. Actually, that does fit. We'll keep it. And then another complementary use that I can think of is if you have the After Dark DLC, you can create tourism districts. So how you do that is we create a district. We're going to go in commercial. And we're going to do tourism specialization. And then this will spawn some cute little hotels and restaurants and stuff that'll fit in really well with the fact that we're going to be bringing in a bunch of tourists in the harbor. Now that we've got the pedestrian area set up, we're gonna create a walkable tramway along the water. For now, we're gonna loop that off there. It looks like but we'll fix it. And we're gonna actually follow the terrain here. And that way we have something to kind of frame and line this area. And then up here we can do housing with roads and stuff. Now when building this pedestrian area out, I'm gonna go for maximum density. So I'm gonna try there. It's not perfect, and I can put in little pedestrian paths in between. And we're gonna make this mixed use and all the goodies. But what else came with plazas and promenades, really cool, is lots of plazas and promenades. So I think right here, we can put a little glass roof. And that looks really cool because you can actually like see the whole skyline of the city now through it. And you'll be able to see across the water. And I think this can be kind of like the main corridor where we're gonna put high density commercial. And I wanna change this specialization here because we can create a district along with the pedestrian district. And with plazas and promenades, wall-to-wall buildings, they mainly just have a different appearance, but as you can see, there are some benefits. The probability of fires starting is reduced, but the fires do spread more easily. It's fine. We're gonna do it. And we can do that with office and residential as well. And along these main corridors, it's gonna be all high density commercial, but in between here, I'm actually gonna put a bike path. And same here, another bike path. I think having these little bike paths in between is gonna be really cute. And now we have to induce some demand. So I'm gonna include as many of these different types of services as I possibly can, like a high capacity school and a high school, and really do our best here. We want to bring in as much happiness to this area as we can. And I think a childcare center is not a bad idea. The wall-to-wall buildings do have a really nice look with all of these painted murals on them. They're like sort of modern European, or maybe something that you'd see in like Brooklyn that's like gentrifier buildings. But I think they're cute. I think they're gonna work. Now we do have not enough workers. And one thing that we can do here, because our workers are way too educated, we're actually gonna look for a policy here that's gonna help with that called Schools Out. This is gonna help us in the long run. We're gonna do free public transport as well. We really want to encourage transit. Now we do have a tiny bit of residential demand, and we're gonna put it all in here. It's all gonna be wall to wall. So we also have the Statue Plaza, and I think that'll be a fun thing to keep right there. I think it would be cute to add another road, but with some trees in the middle. And if it'll let me, it will. What if we did a full bike path along here so people can bike along the waterfront? I'm really surprised that it let me do that. The vanilla game is usually very finicky about keeping things this close together. And that looks pretty ugly with the tearing. But maybe we can put some trees? It's not perfect, but it's better. And then in this middle area here, I think the boreal pines look kind of nice actually. And that makes a really attractive waterfront. Now let's get the tram going. So this yellow line, I think the yellow line we can just redo. We'll start it here and we'll do a stop every couple of blocks here or so. And there we go. The yellow line has been extended, so it goes down into the waterfront. We do want to give people parks. We also have the sports arenas DLC, and I think a soccer field would actually be a really great addition to the end here. And then I could fence this off and we can decorate this. And I think that's a good little end for the pedestrian area here. And I think adding trees along the paths here just helps to define the space a little more and fill out and detail it so that it doesn't feel so barren. I think this Ego City Market actually, oh, that's beautiful actually. And it matches the purple back here. So I think this came with Africa in Miniature, which is a content creator pack with buildings based off of Africa. And I think that this, I don't know, I like it. I love it there. And I'm gonna do some paths and other stuff around it just to give it some definition. do think some of these flowers, if I can get them in there, just here and there for a splash of color. So today you won't hear it. I have my headphones in. I keep getting tsunami warnings over and over again, even though I have turned off disasters. And I figured out what it is that there's still water on the map somewhere. And so it thinks that there's tsunamis coming from the previous tsunami, which if you watch that episode, it pretty much killed half the city. And that's why we are coming back from it. And I think these wild hedges are perfect for lining paths because they sort of add that definition and you can get them really close together before they start telling you they don't like it.
She goes her own way, like I don't give a damn girl. And my God, she owns it. So many heartbreaks, goes back to 2014, and I think that she knows it. And if you've seen her, I know that you would believe it, 'cause I know that you'd want her.
And I think that looks quite nice, actually. This yellow and purple and blue and this sort of architecture style, I know it's from Africa, but it gives me New Orleans vibes, and New Orleans is one of my favorite cities. It's got that really festive kind of Mardi Gras look to it. So now we need to fill in this area, and this is going to be a little more difficult. We're at least just going to create a layout here that somewhat follows the terrain.
On both her ankles, 21 pilot t-shirt. That's the stuff. Goddamn, she's so.
And then what we're looking at here is needing some sort of main connector. And I think this is the one. It is 4 lanes here, so that's good. But we are going to start it back up as a larger 4-lane road. We'll do trees and bike lanes. And we're going to end it right there. And this terrain is a great way to break up the grid. And as you can see, it still sort of flows in a grid-like fashion, but it's more organic because it does follow the terrain and it gives a little more detail to the road and definition to where things are based on where the mountains go. So for this, I'm going to do something similar here. Now we have some residential demand. So this is what I really want to do. Now that we've actually taken the time to focus and pay attention to city services, we should make sure that this area is developed enough with services that will be able to handle this kind of residential development. And I'm thinking that just by adding a few things here and there into the area, wherever I can fit them, it'll help. I really want this cricket pitch. I don't know why I want it, but I want it. I don't even know how to play cricket. I've played once in my life before. I just really love the way the sports fields look, and I kind of like having games that aren't just American, so we're doing cricket. On TikTok, I get accused of being too America-centric sometimes in my builds. So this is for all you cricket fans trying to do something a little different. And now we have a ton of residential demand, which is what I've been trying to get for a while now. So we're going to pause this because I want to create a district. I do want this district to also be Heart of Korea so we can get that mid-rise look. I think for this sort of strip of commercial here, what we're going to do is actually maintain the district of this place where we have the shopping malls. So mixing the districts like this, I believe it was the great creator Shukaboa who said it's called the Meow method. And this is the mixed districts and uses, or mixed districts and zoning. I can't remember exactly how he termed it, but I'm a big fan of the Meow method. You should go over and subscribe to his channel if you want to know more. He is the best vanilla detailer out there, and I have learned so much from watching his series about how to play the vanilla game, so I will always recommend that you check him out. And speaking of mixed districts, we're going to create another district here, actually, that I want to be a different style. And the district style I want to do here, I'm thinking European suburbia or mid-century modern. I'm thinking mid-century modern, actually. It'll look cute. It'll go well with the Heart of Korea assets. So let's go ahead and zone all of this out to low density residential. I'm so excited to see this residence develop. And look at those. See, these are what I want. I want these mid-rise buildings. So it'll provide a nice sort of tapering off effect from here to here to here. And on the hill, we'll have all these beautiful Korean buildings, except for right here where we've got some of the mid-century, like the smaller houses in the middle. I think it's going to look cute. And then in between here, this is just going to be another filler area. Walkable green space. When in doubt, walkable green space. That's usually what I do when I have an area that's kind of a weird shape and doesn't really, there's no real use for it. Like this I could zone, but the buildings are gonna come in a weird angle and it's all gonna look bad. So instead, I can just make this sort of enclosed space that really gives people a place to relax and walk around and creates these beautiful park spaces that aren't officially parks in the game. Those little green spaces look so much nicer, although having this abandoned high-rise just is embarrassing, so we're definitely going to delete the high-rise and replace it with parking lots. Because this is America, and that's what we do best, is parking lots. It's filling in. Over time, it'll fill in nicer. We are having some trouble with not enough educated workers now, which is interesting. We could probably throw in a public library, which will help with the education levels. I'm thinking if we just throw it in right here. Goodbye. No. Oh, that looks awful. No, we're gonna live with it. I'm going to lie in the bed that I made. I'm going to deal with the consequences of my actions. I'm gonna 100% make the best of this. And we're gonna detail this space because why not? I built a stupid thing in a stupid place and now I win a stupid prize, which is an ugly ass area in my ugly city. So there, we'll just fill it with some trees. It looks nice enough. Like it's not perfect, but it looks better than it did. And some of these areas, like that is just terrible. And how I usually fix that is I like to break up that sort of dead space with some paths, and we'll lose some buildings, but that's okay. I do hate this blank empty space, so I do everything I can to at least cover it up with something, whether that's landscaping or paths or props or bushes or trees or whatever it is, just so that it doesn't look artificial and fake like it developed at random in a video game. So I try my hardest to at least add something in here. Otherwise, it just doesn't feel right. And in fact, I'm not loving these mid-century modern buildings here, so we're gonna change the district style. We're gonna do European suburbia. And so now we're actually developing quite nicely. The city is losing money now, so we do need to work on that. Overall, we've got our demand somewhat stabilized again, where we're starting to actually develop again and not just flatline. There are still some problems, especially with not enough educated workers, which I do think is going to be persistent for a while as the education balances. Because for a while we only had educated workers, and now we don't have enough. And so as you can see, this is a common thing that'll happen with new players, is they'll start to give up because they'll lose the demand. Their city will be totally broken. They'll have no residential demand, no commercial demand, and they won't know where to go with it. And what you really can do in that point is think about why. What's going on in your city that there's no demand? Is it lack of land value? Is it not enough services? Is it just your people are happy as it is and the game's telling you to go spend your time on something else, like a unique building or detailing some parks, just giving yourself some time to do something to make your city look nicer? And with enough time and working on your city and really making sure that there's enough fire coverage, there's enough police coverage, the transit network works and goes to places that people want to go, and then bringing in unique buildings and bringing in tourists to the city to visit, at that point, the demand will come back. It's just a matter of balancing what you need, what your people need. My city is it's not really growing right now, especially after that nasty disaster. but it's going in the right direction, and we're starting to make it look really pretty. If you've made it this far, you must have really liked the video, because this is the longest one I've done in a very long time. So if you're interested, I do a number of heavily detailed modded cities as well. I highly encourage you to check out my other series of Cascadia Bay, which is set in the US Pacific Northwest. So click here to watch. And as always, please don't forget to like and subscribe to see more episodes of Sandy Beach.